I'm Brandon Dawson, and this is The Distiller, a podcast about how we find meaningful work and how we find meaning in the work we do. You might recall, if you listen to The Distiller regularly, that back in episode 8 of the podcast, we spoke with Megan Trischler, project coordinator for People's Liberty. People's Liberty is a nonprofit that gives grants to people working on or creating community building projects in Cincinnati. Well, today's guest is Melis Aydogan, one of the recent People's Liberty Project grantees. In her day job, Melis works in sales at the General Office of Procter & Gamble here in Cincinnati. But Melis recently applied for and won a grant from People's Liberty to create Ruya Coffee. Ruya is an authentic Turkish coffee house in the People's Liberty Globefront space, which is a storefront right off the historic Findlay Market in Cincinnati's Over-the-Rhine neighborhood. Ruya Coffee is a labor of love and something of a lifelong dream for Melis. In fact, the word Ruya means dream in Turkish. It's something Melis will explain more about later in the episode. But Ruya is more than coffee. It's a community gathering space, a place where people can come and experience something new and exotic, but an experience that pulls them gently out of their comfort zone and invites them into another culture and to engage with other people. Melis and her mother Ayşe not only serve coffee and wonderful Turkish desserts and Turkish delight, which we sampled while we were talking, they also perform the traditional Turkish fortune-telling ceremony, reading the coffee grounds at the bottom of your cup. And at the end of this episode, Melis actually reads my fortune. You can listen to that at the end of the episode. We also have a video of that on our website at thedistillerpodcast.com, so you can see the grounds in the cup as she's reading them. So check it out. It goes without saying that approaches to work are as diverse as the people we speak to. Melis brought something unique to our conversation, though, which was the perspective of a first-generation American. Her parents moved to the United States before she was born, specifically to give their kids the greatest breadth of opportunity. Melis talks about the way that influenced her approach to her education and, of course, her work decisions. But she also talks about how the dual identity of immigrant and citizen creates a dichotomy within herself. Is she Turkish? Is she American? It's a wonderful addition to the cumulative picture of work that these conversations are building, and a reminder that meaningful work means many different things to many different people. We recorded live at Ruya Coffee early on a Tuesday morning. You can hear the construction crews arriving outside and the garbage trucks barreling by on the streets. We sipped some strong Turkish coffee. We ate wonderful Turkish delight as the sun rose over Findlay Market, and we worked through questions of how we balance our work life with our passion projects. Melis is right in the center of that question. Having a solid, reliable corporate job that she's really good at, but just having created something beautiful and meaningful apart from her work, and beginning to think about the future of both. It's a snapshot of someone right in that inflection point of big decisions, and we really appreciate Melis inviting us not only into her space, but into her progress right at this stage. We started off just by talking a bit about how Ruya came to be. I had just finished my first cup of Turkish coffee, turned my cup over on my saucer in anticipation of the fortune-telling that would come later, and we jumped right in. So here is my conversation with Melis Aydogan of Ruya Coffee on the Distiller podcast. So first of all, thank you for getting up early. It is an early Tuesday morning in Over-the-Rhine, and we're here in the People's Liberty Globefront space at Ruya. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here since I'm a huge podcast junkie.
Fantastic. Well, tell me, let's start off and tell me about Ruya. You created Ruya with a team of people by yourself? Okay.
I started out by myself. I'm, kind of the type of person that thinks they don't need help.
Until you get into it.
Until I'm like, wait, I don't know how to do anything. And so basically I won the grant, or I got the phone call that I won in like late August of 2017. And ever since then, like my mind has been going and I've been thinking about it. Mm-hmm. And then I didn't really hit the ground running probably until like about March of 2018 of like really taking steps forward. Before that, it was just all inspiration phase.
Okay.
And so, I've had a ton of help along the way from just friends, family friends, people like have come out of the woodwork that I haven't even talked to in forever. And like from high school and middle school that have been like, I've always wanted to open up a coffee shop too, or I love the mission or something like that. And like, if there's anything I can do, just let me know. So
Let's take a second for people that don't know what People's Liberty is. I think on our third or fourth episode, maybe 5, we interviewed Megan Trischler, who is the program director for People's Liberty, and she talked about the organization. But very briefly, People's Liberty is an organization that's funded by the Haile Foundation to basically give grants out to people who are doing work that builds community in Cincinnati.
Right.
And one of the grants that they give is a $10,000 project grant. Mm-hmm. And they give out something like between 7 and 10 of those a year. Mm-hmm. And so you applied for one of those grants.
So I applied for the Globe grant.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, which is a separate grant.
So talk about what that is.
So the project grant is one in which you can do anywhere. Okay. But the Globe grant is specific to this building.
Okay. So to do an event or a project in this space. In
this space. So you get this space for free for 3 months as part of the grant. And you can they literally are awesome with like letting you do anything in this space. So like, as long as you don't tear walls down, you can, paint it, put holes in it. So I basically turned it into a Turkish coffee house. And then you get a pile of money to do that as well.
Okay. Do you know how many people applied for the grant?
I remember I did ask, don't quote me on this, but I think the number of applicants they had was over 100.
Wow.
Yeah, something like that.
So it was a lot.
It was a lot, yeah.
And what was the first idea that was in your mind? How did you find out about this, and what made you think, I want to A, apply for a grant, and B, that you want to do this, that you specifically wanted to do a Turkish coffee house in Cincinnati?
Yeah. So how I first found out about it was, I tell this story so many times, and I that feeling where you're like reliving the moment, because it was right there where it happened. It was just outside these doors. Uh-huh. It was me and 3 of my best friends from high school. Mm-hmm. Alok Desai, Sahil Desai, and Jordan Perlman. Shout out to them.
There you go. They listen. We were
we were walking to Rheingeist for a drink, and someone was having their launch party. It was the Green Store at the time. Okay. And I was like, oh, what's that party? So I peeked my head in, and I was asking like, oh, is this like an exclusive thing? Like, can I come in? And they're like, yeah, it's exclusive, but I'll tell you what it is. And so they told me about People's Liberty and how this was her first day. And so she was doing this launch party. Cool. And I was like, oh, cool. And at the time I was like, that's cool. And then I went to Rheingeist and had a drink with my friends and kind of forgot about it. Yep. And then fast forward a couple months later, I was on a bus from Chicago to Cincinnati, and this guy named Brad Cooper, not the actor.
The actor? Yeah. Fantastic. I didn't know he travels by bus.
Yeah.
He's come up in the world since then.
He sat next to me, and he's actually a Haile Foundation grantee. Okay. So he does this thing called Small Houses in OTR, and he actually just closed on his house a couple days ago, so I'm so proud of him. Awesome. But he was telling me about the grant process. I was like, oh, I know People's Liberty. And so he asked the question, if you were to win a grant, what would you do? Nice. And something that's always been, like, being a first-generation Turkish American, that my family has always talked about, is bringing a taste of our home to our home here, which is where sometimes in my storytelling through social media, I say Ruya is where home meets home. Okay. And so whether that was through a cafe, I remember one ride home with my mom, she said she always wanted to open up a Turkish cafe and call it the Bosphorus, because it's like one of the most beautiful places in the world. But yeah, we always just kind of wanted to have something little, but we never actually thought seriously about it. We just talk about it. Yeah. So that was always something that I've always lived with and has been a topic of conversation throughout my life. So I said probably a Turkish coffee house, because I think I don't know anything else that creates community more in my motherland, because I kind of equate it to like an American diner. Like, you will find a truck driver and a businessman sitting next to each other, and they could spark conversation over a cup of coffee. So it's kind of a place of hospitality and entertainment from all walks of life. So when I said that, I was like, I just kind of said it, and he was the one that pushed me. Brad Cooper was the one that was like, you should do it. And I was like, nah, I don't know. Like, all I know how to do is sell P&G product. Like, how am I going to build a coffee house? Like, I can't even paint a wall. So he was like, you'll figure it out along the way. Like, just do it. And so literally 2 hours before the deadline, I hit submit.
Wow.
And just because I kind of mulled it over the next couple of days, and I would have regretted if I didn't. Yeah. Just like even just taking the opportunity, like I didn't expect to get anything, but if I didn't hit submit, then I would have been like, oh, what if I had?
Right.
And I didn't want to have that regret of what if.
Yeah. What's the original project proposal process like? What did you have to submit?
So they're pretty simple questions, but I like took them very seriously in the sense of like I wrote way too much, and like they have a word limit of like 250 words or something, and I wrote pages and pages and pages, and I was like,
then you had to edit it down when you're entering it in. Yeah. Because it's an online form, right? You have to submit it to their website, so you can't hit submit until you cut.
It's like they only want like 3 to 5 sentences, and I don't know what I was thinking. I just like spilled my heart and my thoughts out. Yeah. And so basically it's like, why do you want to do this? What would you do? How would you bring back the same person 5 times? What sort of events? How would this build community? And like, what does this mean to you? Like questions that are pretty simple, but
make you think about good, like deep stuff.
Right.
Yeah. And so you fast forward, you opened on, when did you open?
September 7th. Okay.
Yeah. And it's open until November 18th?
Yes.
All right. So we're recording, what is it, October 9th? Yes. This episode will probably go up in just a couple of days. And so specifically people in Cincinnati, or if you're coming through Cincinnati, you've got just over a month to get back in. And we'll talk in a little while. I know you're sort of thinking about what maybe happens after Ruya in this incarnation closes, and we'll talk about that in a bit. So maybe if you're listening to this and it's after November 18th, who knows? There may still be something you can experience. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about because you sort of have 2 lives. You mentioned that you sell stuff for P&G. That's your day job.
That is my day job.
What's your specific title and function at P&G?
So they just changed my title. It was Category Development Account Executive. Now it's Growth Analytics Manager. Basically, I sell personal healthcare products to Kroger.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mostly in Cincinnati or all around?
Mostly in Cincinnati. We're going to since Kroger is the #1 grocer in America, they have banners all over. So I'll be going to North Carolina here in a couple of hours. Okay.
Hence the early morning meeting.
Yeah.
So, and how long have you been at P&G?
It'll be 3 years in January.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was that the process of you coming to Cincinnati and then working? How long have you been in Cincinnati?
So I grew up in Cincinnati. I was born and raised in Cincinnati. I went to Indian Hill High School. I graduated in 2012. And then I went to Boston University, graduated early from there, and started working right away after graduation.
At P&G, first job out of school?
At P&G, yep. My first role was in Philadelphia, selling to Rite Aid, actually. Fantastic. Selling shampoo and conditioner to Rite Aid. So
right on.
If you have any questions about hair care or personal health care products,
we can do that. I have many.
I know that's
as soon as we're done, that can be a little segment that we put after the podcast online.
Yeah. Yeah.
Melis talks about personal health care products.
Bye, Pepto.
So that's your day job. Yeah. And now you find yourself, first of all, have you had to take any time off of work in order to do this?
Yeah. P&G is really good about making sure that they are supportive of you outside of work. Mm-hmm. So once I found out about the grant, I talked to my manager, and she recommended she was the one who told me, I think you probably want to take a sabbatical for this. Really? Yeah. Okay. So I was like, I can do everything all the time by myself. And so I was like, are you sure? And then she was like, yeah. And I'm glad she did, because when we were doing construction, it was like 16-hour days.
Right.
And I wouldn't have been able to do both. So I did take a month off. They let me take a month off, and I'm really grateful for that.
Cool.
And that was basically to get the shop up and running, so construction, and then a week or two of figuring out operations. And then I went back to, I've been back at work for about 2.5 weeks from now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now you're balancing for the duration of the project. You're sort of balancing work and being here.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Ruya's open Thursday, Friday, Saturday?
Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday from?
Friday and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Okay.
And then also Saturday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. with a lot of evening events. So some of the evening events are on Thursday. A lot of them are on Friday or Sunday.
Okay.
So check our event calendar on ruyacoffee.com.
Ruyacoffee.com.
Yes.
And the Instagram?
Ruya Cincy.
Ruya Cincy.
Yeah.
And there's a lot, like, you do a great job of curating sort of that presence overall. I feel like the Ruya Instagram account gives a really, really lovely presentation of what you're doing. And it's not just the images, but it's also the philosophy behind what you're doing and what it means to you.
Yeah. I mean, in the beginning, we started the Instagram when we started construction. And so we were we were showing like every step of the process. There was one day where 2 days before opening, we flooded. And that was a great...
I remember seeing that.
Did you see that on our story?
Yeah, when it rained like for 4 days straight or something like that. And you guys were just about to open. And yeah, I saw you putting sandbags and towels and things like that in front of the door.
Well, literally anything we could find. My friend literally took off his shirt and threw it at just to soak up any of the water. Oh man, it was. Don't get into entrepreneurship unless you can survive a flood, I guess.
There you go. Good tip.
Yeah.
So the process now, you have this career.
Yep.
You went to college. You have this career. You're first generation American. There's so much in there because you took this essentially corporate job, but now you're doing this really interesting cultural thing. And I'm interested in finding out if that's changing how you think about your work.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what have you learned, and this can be in any sense, about yourself? Obviously, you said that you're somebody who wants to take things on all by yourself, and you found out that through Ruya, you've had to pull other people in who had different skills from you. But what else have you learned about yourself through starting this process that you wouldn't have learned just doing your job at P&G?
I think the biggest thing is empathy, because so many different types of people walk through that door, and I try, if the place is not super busy, I try to talk to every single person that buys a cup of coffee from me. And I try to read everyone's fortune, because I know that's why they came here, because it is so different, and it's usually their first cup of Turkish coffee, and I really want to understand, like, do they like the taste? Do they like the experience? And so I've had everyone from like a homeless person walk in that I gave a cup of coffee to people from P&G that I work with. And so through the fortune telling, it's really just a platform to have a conversation. So even if you don't believe in fortune telling, personally, like from a personal standpoint, I think it's all hocus pocus, right? Like, how can you tell someone's fortune from lines of grounds? Like, someone asked the question, like, is there any physics involved in it? Like, is this true? Like, is this kind of like horoscopes with the stars and everything?
Right.
And like how that's there's some science behind that, but I'm like, no, it's just like, it's just a way for you to talk.
It's a device to
about
open
life.
up and speak to people.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
So my mom did it for me growing up. And even if you don't feel like opening up, it allows you to reflect on where you are, and where you want to go. So, I mean, sometimes my mom would be a mom and be nosy and be like, oh, there's a boy.
Oh, I wish I had that device with my son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so it's so funny because so many people that come in and get their fortunes told, a lot of them I don't know, and I may never see again. So I think people are a lot more open to talking about their problems or their dreams, sharing things that they wouldn't normally share, because I may never see them again, and there's no judgment. And so it's actually my favorite part of the project is learning about the people in my community through the fortune telling aspect.
So describe the ritual, because somebody comes in, if you haven't seen the pictures, first of all, while you're listening, if you can, go to thedistillerpodcast.com and we'll link to both the Instagram page and to your website. Because what they've done, the globe front space here at People's Liberty is kind of an empty box that, like you said, you get a budget to transform into whatever you want. So the things hanging from the ceiling, the wallpaper and the coloring, the rugs that you've put down, you really have transformed it into a space that feels like maybe you just stepped into a Turkish coffee shop.
Yeah.
And then when you come in, there's the low couches and the low tables. Describe the process. Maybe somebody has never had Turkish coffee and has no idea.
Yeah.
Describe to them in a little bit of detail what is special about Turkish coffee, both in terms of how it's made and then the ritual around it and everything, including the fortune telling and how the fortune telling happens.
Yeah. So basically, the way I designed this space was for you to feel like you were in a home, specifically designed after my grandmother's home.
Okay.
Living room. And it's most, like the mismatching couches, like not everything really like is perfectly matched and curated to a T. But I want it to feel cozy and homey. And that's really because in Turkey, you don't see a lot of people going out for Turkish coffee for multiple reasons. One, it's a third world country, so going out and paying money for coffee is kind of like a special occasion. Like you get dressed up and
you're not going to do it every day. You're not going to hit it like Starbucks on your way to work or something. Okay. Yeah.
No. And it is also a very intimate thing that you do like with your family after breakfast or dinner. But definitely something that you do after a meal because since Turkish coffee is so strong, it can upset your stomach if you have an empty stomach.
Okay.
So I didn't want it to feel like an actual like shop, like a retail shop. Mm-hmm. So I wanted it to feel like home. And it's funny because sometimes kids will come in here and think it's an actual home and take their shoes off.
Make yourself at home.
Yeah, exactly. Which I'm happy that they do.
Yeah, it means you've done a good job sort of creating that environment. The kids are buying in.
Yeah, exactly. And so you just walk up to the counter, and a lot of people, there's Turkish coffee on the window, so I think they know to come in for Turkish coffee. But they usually either one they've had a history with it, so that they're like from Turkey or another Middle Eastern country, or it's their first time. Mm-hmm. So they really just order the coffee, and you can watch it being made. All you need is really a heat source water in a thing called an ibrik or jezve, which is a copper pot with a long handle. Mm-hmm. And it's just back to the basics. So you put the finely ground powder into the jezve and along with the cold water, and you mix it. And when it starts to boil and starts to foam and bubble, you turn the heat source down, and then you just wait for it to increase the bubbles, because the bubbles are really a huge part of Turkish coffee, especially from an aesthetic standpoint, mm-hmm. but also the first sip and that mouthfeel that you get from the bubbles. So yeah, after that, once the liquid is done, you turn the cup over, and I see you've done that.
I have. My cup is waiting here for when we finish our conversation. You can read my fortune in the cup.
And the grounds run down the cup and create lines in which I come over and read your fortune. Or my mom comes over and reads. For some reason, every time my mom does it, there's a huge like roar of laughter. And I'm like, oh.
What's she telling people? Is she making stuff up?
Well, I mean, she sometimes, I mean, like she'll find symbols within the cup and, say, like, for example, a fish means good luck. A dog means like a loyal friend is going to reach out. But I don't know what she just makes jokes with people all the time. Like she's constantly making fun of me, but she's really the heart and the soul behind all of this. She makes me laugh because as I was coming here, I was like, oh, I'm going, for a podcast interview. And she's like, I don't get it. Like, I taught you, I made you. This wouldn't happen without me. And you get all the credit. Like,
I love it.
Yeah.
We should have brought her in, because she was here the other day when I stopped by. And she's adorable. She's
everyone loves her.
She's really, really sweet.
Yeah.
And I think when I stopped in, either you were on your way, you were parking your car or something like that. So your mom made me the first cup of coffee and I sat down and she was just so nice. I honestly felt like I was in somebody's living room, like she had just sort of welcomed me in. So I get it, whether it was intentional or not, having your mother here, having that experience, like there's something about it that just feels authentic. Like you couldn't have hired anybody better than bringing your mom in to do that.
Yeah, which is why it's so hard for me to hire help.
Yeah.
Because I'm like,
how are you going to replicate that? You're going to have to gather up every Turkish woman in Cincinnati and have them come work for you.
Yeah, basically. Oh man, yeah.
But it is wonderful. So people come in, and when we were just chatting the other day, one of the things that you told me is, and you kind of mentioned this, that the coffee itself is, yes, you want people to have an authentic experience of Turkish coffee. But the coffee and the fortune telling and everything else that you've done with the couches and with the setting is a conduit for community and for connection. Mm-hmm. And one of the interesting things that I saw happening was that the fortune telling in particular, you can come in and you can sit next to somebody here like you would at a coffee shop and have your coffee and leave. Yeah. But there's something about, maybe particularly when your mom comes over and starts reading somebody's fortune, and she either sits or the couches are low, so she's crouching down at the table, and it causes people to turn their attention to what's happening. I feel like people don't feel like they have to be private about it.
Right. Yeah.
People don't feel like they have to, oh, well, there's this thing happening at this table and I don't want to appear to be eavesdropping. Right. Just the opposite. They want to turn and look and see what's being said because people are laughing. Yeah. And so all of a sudden you may have come in, 2 people came in and 2 people came in and 2 people came in. Now they're a group of 6 people gathered around a table where a story is being told. Yes. That's kind of a magical thing that you've done around coffee, but the coffee has very little to do with it except for the device, which is that you've created a situation in which boundaries are broken down and people didn't even know to be resistant. People didn't know that they were going to be invited into a community experience, and here they are participating in it. Yes. It's really wonderful. I feel like people who are like community specialists, there's a guy in Cincinnati named Peter Block, who I think we've talked about on the podcast before, who writes books about developing community. Yeah. And his books are about and they're very, very helpful, but it's like, how do you foster conversations that get people together? How do you break down barriers for people? How do you set up a physical environment that's conducive to people not being protective of their space? Yeah, right. And those are all great, but maybe the answer is just have your mom come and tell people's fortunes.
I think so.
And it breaks down all those walls.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad it's happening because I wanted to just give a taste of culture, but also just shed some hope in the world, and especially like this is a little bit of kind of my mission also, is changing the narrative for the culture. So for example, when I say I'm going to Turkey for a vacation or holiday, the first question they always ask is it safe? Are you going to be okay? And I'm like, yeah, is it safe to go to downtown Cincinnati? Yeah. And so I just wanted to show that Turkish culture, Turkish people are not what you may see or hear in the media. And not just Turkish, like all other cultures within that area that also, have the same coffee culture. So, but really what you'll see in the events that I've curated is not just Turkish events, but also cultures outside of America, and just giving people a taste of that, not to judge people based off of what you may see in the media.
Yeah. Are you seeing that happen? Like, what are you seeing that's taking place? What are the stories of interactions that you've seen happen that maybe give you an indication that some of that is working?
Well, just the fact that they had no idea, like when someone says it's their first cup and they are just like, they come in, just kind of like, oh, this is my normal day. And then they have this experience that they didn't expect. And they leave just saying, when hearing them say like, oh, I'm so happy now, like, and leaving with a smile on their face. I think that's kind of the impression and like the legacy I want to leave. But also when people start talking about their dreams. So Ruya translates to dream in Turkish. And the reason I went back and forth on names for so long, but the reason that one was special to me was because not only was it a family dream, but the platform and the device of coffee, people end up talking about their dreams through the fortune telling. So when people take the first step and acknowledge, like, this is my goal, this is my dream, they always leave with like, okay, I'm going to go take the first step for that. And that makes me so happy because someone gave me a chance to fulfill my family's dream. Yeah. And so if I can pass that along to someone and help them in any way that I can and support them in their journey, then I feel like I've done a little bit of good.
Which is, I feel like, true about you in a broader sense even than the Globe Grant, which is that your family came here. When we met the other day, you were talking a little bit about the experience of first-generation Americans being particularly different in relation to work and their dreams and all of the questions that we talk about on this podcast, then I can even really conceive. I want to dive into that a little bit. I'm honestly not even sure how to do it, because the question is just basically how do first generation Americans think about work in ways that I would never conceive of. Yeah. And there's a lot in there. Talk a little bit about just how you think about your work, the questions of meaningful work. Yep. I think you think about that in a different way than I do.
I don't want to put a blanket statement on this is how all first-generation immigrants think, but I will say personally, like, I can speak very passionately about, for example, my corporate job. A lot of millennials have a negative connotation when they, say I work a corporate job, and I just want to be a little bit mindful when, someone's like, oh, do you really love what you do? No, but like, I don't love what I do every day when I'm at Ruya because like painting walls is hard. Like when I was doing construction, like I don't love construction, but like it was a step towards something greater. Yeah. For a greater purpose and for a more meaningful purpose. But in terms of like work, I think especially Americans may think like, why don't you just go out and do your own thing? But for me, it's mostly just acknowledging how much sacrifice my parents, left everything in Turkey, left all their family, everything they ever knew about themselves, and came to a country just to give their kids a better life. Yeah. Literally, when my mom became pregnant, the only reason they came to America was to make my older brother an American citizen. Wow. They were going to go back and live their lives, but they fell in love with the place and completely changed their game plan. So the reason they came to Cincinnati,
So all the stories, all of the movies are, these people have always had a dream to come to America. Yeah. That's subtly but importantly different, was that they were perfectly happy in Turkey, but they wanted to provide.
They were living a great life in Turkey. Yeah. Yeah, they were well off and they were perfect.
But they wanted to give you and your brother, at that time your brother, because he's older and they didn't know that you would exist, they wanted to give their children the greatest sort of opportunity that they could, and they saw that as coming to America and giving him citizenship. Yeah,
and a huge thank you to my father, because he's kind of the super forward thinking in that sense of, especially in terms of education. He puts a great deal of emphasis on education, and he knew America had the best education system compared to Turkey. So, but like, I think of all of the other aspects, like sport is a huge part of my background, and women and sport and culture, which is another event on October 19th here in Ruya. You don't see a lot of females doing sport. And it breaks my heart, because like, if I were to, like, when I go running in shorts in Istanbul, in the streets of Istanbul, my family members are like, what are you, like, put something on. Like, right. I'm
Cover
like,
yourself.
It's 90 degrees outside. Yeah. Come on. Yeah. And I think that's a reason why, that's one barrier to women doing sport, right? Because it is a Muslim country. Yep. But there are also just many other barriers in which, females are should be seen as, this feminine, beauty, and sport is not always feminine. So I think if I didn't have sport in my life, one, I think I would go crazy because it's therapy for me. And two, I wouldn't have confidence. Like I wouldn't have a community. So when I look back at it, I'm so grateful that my parents, did everything they could to make life work here. And it wasn't always easy growing up, just in terms of like, financially, like emotionally, like figuring out who I was, like and having two different identities.
Yeah.
It wasn't always easy, but I think just having a mission and like a reason why you are here and why you're doing the work and why you are so, you'll stay up, you'll work 16 hours straight.
Yeah.
I just always think of my parents. So.
Yeah. You told me that in college, when you were in college, that all of your friends, not all of your friends, but you had a group of friends that were all first generation Americans, which makes sense because your concerns were the same. Your mindset might be similar. And I know you don't want to paint with an overly broad brush, but nevertheless, there's a lot that's common to your experience as a group. Understanding we're not speaking for everybody, but as a group, like what is different about how you approached your education, how you approached the job market, and how you think about your job today? I mean, I would think that, and I'm gonna guess about the mindset of millennials, which I don't have any business doing, but I mean, like an average sort of fairly entitled American is gonna think, well, yeah, I'm smart, I should get the job, I deserve this thing. Yeah. Nobody recognizes how smart I am. How do you and how do your first generation friends, are you conscious of having a different approach to your work than the perhaps more entitled people that you see around you?
I think, well, I don't know what the entitled people, I can't get inside their brain.
Right, it's fair.
But I guess I'll answer the first question in terms of how I approached education. Especially in university when I graduated, when I decided I need to get in and get out, get my paper and start working. Yeah,
you said you graduated early.
Yeah, from Boston University. So, I mean, for me, university was a way to get a job. Mm-hmm. It wasn't this time period of finding myself or this time period to dilly-dally. Yeah. Whereas I saw a lot of maybe quote unquote entitled Americans are like, oh, I don't know my major. And I'm like, you're a junior, figure it out. Like what, you're wasting time.
Clock is ticking.
Yeah. So that was a big wake up call as well. And in university, I was also friends with a lot of people who were either immigrants, or they were first generation immigrants. So I don't know what it is about us and non-Americans, but you automatically connect. It doesn't matter what culture you're from, but if you're like...
You just find each other?
Yeah, you just find each other. I guess it's just the energy. But probably at the library.
Right, actually doing work.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody else is out partying, you're studying.
Yeah. So that's how I viewed education and the way I view work. My internships were... When I was applying, I was like, what's the highest paying job? Because I'm like...
Yeah, you're pragmatic about it.
Right. I was like, I just saw it as a way to earn money so I could pay back to my parents what they sacrificed and help support them. Yeah. And so, I interned at Merrill Lynch, and then I realized, wait, I do have this American side of me where I need meaning in my life. So I got out of, banking, and I was like, okay, what is a job that pays well, but also like I have a connection to? And so I thought about it, and I thought of P&G first because if it wasn't for P&G, I wouldn't be in America, because the reason my parents came to Cincinnati specifically was because the only contact they had was my mom's older brother who worked for P&G at the time. Wow. He's no longer in Cincinnati, but I just thought, okay, like this has some sort of connection to me. Yeah. So I feel like working for a company that has given me the life that I am so grateful for gives a lot more meaning to the work I do, even if I don't love it every single day staring at an Excel spreadsheet. Yeah. So viewed education more as a way to get a job, viewing my corporate job as a way to support my family. Yeah. Viewing this project as a way for me, it makes me feel alive. to connect with my community, to be creative, and to really just have something of my own. Like, there's so much gratification and satisfaction in like dreaming up something your whole life and then like starting to plan for it for like a year and then literally not knowing anything about the coffee industry or like how to be a project manager for a construction project. But like always figuring it out and always knowing, realizing who has your back, who's in your corner, like rooting for you, and also realizing who's not. So, yeah, that's a little bit about that.
Yeah,
I don't know if that answered your question.
It does, absolutely. The idea that you have sort of these two competing, or not necessarily competing, but side by side. There's the Turkish you and there's the American you, and the Turkish you, to a degree that I honestly just don't feel like I can fully appreciate. I feel like a lot of Americans, think about, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to get my job, I'm going to be out on my own.
Yeah.
They're primarily like, how do I break away from this thing? Not how do I give back to this thing? Right. And obviously I'm not speaking about everybody. And a lot of people have very strong families, but even then, it seems like the coin is a bit flipped. Like, my parents were successful. They have a responsibility to set me up for success,
right? So
that I can jump out and be out.
Not that my parents didn't set me up for success.
No, not. And I'm not saying they didn't. I'm just saying that I don't feel like there's culturally the same deep desire to give back,
right? And
the same feeling of obligation, but in a sense of, like the good and the bad of obligation.
Right.
I want to do it. I need to do it. They gave me everything. How could I not do it?
Yeah.
And that experience is maybe not universal to first generation Americans, but is common enough that you felt like the friend group that you had at college, a lot of them felt that way and were making decisions based on that.
Right. Yeah. And just having the conversations with those friends, I will never forget, about how to approach life and also keep the family happy and also not let the family in the motherland down as well. It's funny because like in Turkey, I'll go there and sometimes I'm seen as the American, right? Because I'm one of the very few from my family who's in America. And when I'm in America, I'm seen as the Turk.
Right.
So that was what I was kind of referring to as, what am I? What's my identity?
Yeah.
And because I'll go to Indian Hill High School where there's not so much diversity, but just
said tactfully.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead.
But you do your thing, you wear your North Face, you read your books.
You get by.
Yeah. And I come home and, it's my mom yelling at me to take off my shoes and get studying, and she's making dolma, which is like this. Yeah. I would always bring in lunch that my friends were like, what is that?
What is this stuff you're eating?
Yeah. So it's just like this struggle of I'm wearing a North Face, but I'm eating dolma. What am I? And then, as I got older, I realized, okay, I'm both and I need to celebrate both. And just own that. And I kind of use that as, I hate using the word competitive advantage because it sounds so corporate and businessy, but I realized my culture was my competitive advantage because not everyone can say they've had the experiences that I have. And so being able to put myself in other people's shoes a little bit, and having maybe a little bit more empathy than someone who's a little bit quote unquote more entitled, I thought was how I should approach the world, and which is why I am so, open to listening to other people's stories and hearing about what they want to do in life.
Right. Which takes us back to, you were saying empathy was sort of like the thing that you really had grabbed onto as something that you were learning from this experience.
Yeah.
Which is great. It's not what I would have expected you to say. I might have said, thought you were going to say financial management, QuickBooks. I don't know, but.
So in the application for the grant, they asked for a budget. And I made it up like super quick. Like I was like, maybe $100 for decorations. No.
Yeah, ballpark figures.
Everything did not go as planned. I tried to plan as much as possible, but like within the 2 weeks of construction, everything was like just last minute. We changed the colors last minute. Like I thought that I learned more in those 2 weeks probably than I have in my 3 years at P&G, just because like you have to problem solve on the spot.
Yeah.
And you have to do it under a huge time pressure. But you push through. So I'm always going to remember, like, you can plan as much as you want, but like you just got to roll with the punches sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
It's small business. I mean, even if you're doing it under the heading of something that is a little bit safer like this, it's still, the challenges are the same of starting a project and get it running and getting everybody organized. Yeah. So how is this changing your approach to your job? Is it?
My day job?
Yeah.
So part of me, I don't know if I should be saying this if someone from P&G is listening, but I'm gonna speak my honest truth. So part of me does feel like after the sabbatical, I was kind of a bird that flew from its cage, and now I'm back in its cage.
Well,
and it's very
understandable.
hard.
You had a different set of experiences, and then I think the challenge is to say, does this mean I have to change my whole life, or more often does this mean that I can bring these to bear and still be happy and have this new experience and these new set of skills? Right,
exactly. Which is what I'm trying to do every day, is kind of take the skills that I've learned from this project and apply them in my day job. Especially in a sales aspect of empathy, like, okay, meeting with my buyer and, learning more about her versus just being like, hey, buy this.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Got to get in, got to get out.
Yeah. But it just feels like the things that I'm doing within Ruya and the experiences that I have and the conversations that I have are so much more meaningful than like when I'm pulling some data and analyzing them on an Excel spreadsheet. And I know I have to look at it at a bigger picture of like, okay, this data is going to achieve this goal, which will, further impact the company in this way. But when you have, put your heart and soul in something that you completely own, it's hard to do that with something that is not yours. It's P&G's. So just figuring out a way. I mean, I'm very passionate about health, like I'm a huge sport person, but so I try to make the connection through, like, oh, I'm selling medicine, which is good for your health, but it's far-fetched of a connection.
Well, this is the disconnect that you're describing is why we have this show.
Yeah.
Literally, it's the reason. How do we think about the work that we do and whether it has meaning? And does everybody even think about that? Does everybody want their work to have meaning? Some people don't.
Yeah.
And for some people, it's like, got to put food on the table.
Yeah.
Got to, fulfill my obligation to my family. Got to take care of my people. Some people don't have the luxury of choice in employment.
Right.
They're like, I have to take any job that I can get because the way that the economy is structured is against me, and I have a minimum number of opportunities. There are a lot of different ideas that people bring to their work about meaning.
Right.
And that process, it's part of why I was really excited to talk to you, is because some of the most interesting conversations that we have are people that are in tension and flux. They're moving from one job to another. They're moving from one stage of their life to another. You have a job that it sounds like you're very good at, but you started this other project, and this project that you're doing, which has blossomed into this beautiful thing, is now creating this tension for you about, what do I do with it?
Yeah.
What do I do with the next stage of Ruya after November 18th?
Right.
Could it possibly live on in another incarnation?
Right.
And then how do I take, and I'm sorry, I'm putting all these words into your mouth, but
how
do I take what I've learned
Yep.
and this new experience and then decide what that means about my conception of meaningful work? And you're right in the middle of all that and sort of wrestling with it.
Right. Yep.
So not to necessarily put you on the spot and say, what does that mean about P&G, but what does it mean about Ruya? What are you thinking? What are the questions that you're trying to answer right now about the future of Ruya?
So I'm really excited because on Sunday morning, I had meeting with Paul Maverick, and he's completely on the same page of like continuing the Ruya chocolate bar.
Well, so Paul Maverick is Maverick Chocolate.
Maverick Chocolate, yes.
Which we should say, if you're again, I'm trying to set context for people that aren't here. If you're not in Cincinnati or haven't been down here, Ruya sits right at the edge in one of the corners of Findlay Market.
Yep.
Which is this beautiful old, I wish I knew the exact statistic, but it's been here for forever.
Forever, yeah.
It's an outdoor market. And it's one of these gathering places in Cincinnati that I know that People's Liberty is located here for a reason. It's a perfect spot for you because it's one of the places in Cincinnati where people from all walks of life are going to walk by your door. And Maverick Chocolate, the reason I'm saying this is because Maverick Chocolate is a little chocolate shop that's about 5 doors away, just sort of kitty corner on the other side of the market.
Yeah.
So you said you met with Paul Maverick on Sunday.
I did. And he was really stoked about continuing the collaboration. So we collaborated on a special dark chocolate with our Turkish blend with deeper roots, and it also has cardamom in it. So for the people who love cardamom,
even though it's not in the Turkish coffee, right?
Yeah. So I have 3 big collaborations with Maverick, Deeper Roots, and Churchill. And I wanted to really use local small businesses within the Findlay Market area to bring up that whole, small business. And
Deeper Roots is coffee. We recorded episode 23 with Bart Campolo at the Deeper Roots Roastery. Churchill is tea.
Yep.
Maverick is coffee, all local businesses.
Yes.
And great partnerships that if you come in, you can see you've got a Deeper Roots blend, you've got a Churchill blend, you've got the Maverick chocolate.
Yes. And what's beautiful about Churchill, Les from Deeper Roots is one of my favorite people in the whole world. He's awesome.
Is great. Yeah.
He's amazing. But about Churchill and Maverick, they are also about the immigrant story.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Churchill, from immigrants from London, which you wouldn't think is like they would have cultural conflict or like a struggle at all, but they do. Like there's still that immigrant feeling.
Interesting.
Even though you still speak English and things like that in London. But then Paul Maverick is from Canada, so also not like what you would think of having a struggle, but he does talk about it. And so when I told him about my whole mission with Ruya and telling the immigrant story, I said, my intention is to never get into the food industry yet. Like, that's not why I started this project. I started this project to create community and bring it to life through physical product with collaborations that also have the same mission.
Yeah.
And so just hearing about their immigrant story and them being on board with it makes me very happy.
Yeah. How cool.
Yeah.
So you're going to keep working together there. Do you know how? Or is it just sort of a commitment to keep working together? Do you know what form it's going to take?
Well, we're going to keep the bar, basically.
In Maverick?
Yeah, so I think we're going to sell it in Maverick, maybe other places.
Fantastic.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
Because even when you and I talked a couple of days ago, there was no specific direction. There was a lot of opportunity and a lot of questions about how to move forward.
Yeah, so
That's
I'm excited.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. So keep watching the website, keep watching the Instagram page.
Facebook too. We're on
Facebook.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we will link to all of those on the episode page. Go to the distillerpodcast.com. We could talk for a long time. There's so much, but I want to get to selfishly the fortune telling.
Yes.
So thank you so much, just for sharing your journey. There's so much that goes into what you're doing, and your candor about those 2 sides of it is interesting to hear about, and it'll be fun to see what happens next.
I hope so too. Yeah, thank you.
You bet. All right, let's move into, I finished my coffee earlier. Maybe Terry's right here, and maybe she'll take some pictures while we're doing this, and we can put those up on the website.
Yeah.
I may even record it on my phone right now, but talk us through a little bit about what you're doing and what you're looking for, and then just tell me how you would do it if I was just one of the customers who wandered in.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. You finish the liquid, you turn the cup upside down, and then I turn it over and read the lines. So as you can see, the lines in the cup.
Yep.
And I look for symbols to read your fortune.
Okay.
So basically, what I see here is, well, one, it looks like in one part of your life, you're holding on to something. See the huge clump right there?
Yes.
You're holding on to something that you've held on to, and it's causing you a lot of frustration. So whatever that may be, you need to let that go, because you will let it go, but once you do, your path and your mind is really clear. So that's shown through the white space here. And once you do let it go and you feel better, the legacy that you leave behind and what you start on after you have a clear mind, and whether it's a project or a new relationship or a new person that comes into your life after you've moved on, that's kind of your lasting impact. So the rim of the cup is really the legacy that you leave behind. So as you can see, there's grounds around there. What I also see, so this is kind of small, but there's a stem with a little bud at the top.
I see it.
So that is
sort of looks like a fleur-de-lis or something. Yeah.
So what that says is there's something that had just started. Now I feel like I don't want to put words or like make you think about something.
Go ahead, I'm here for it.
But I know you have a new 1-year-old or something.
I do.
So
yeah.
What this is showing is there's something that just started. It's pretty new, but it's going to bloom and blossom into something else. So it could be your kid. It could be something else that's at the top of your mind. But
could be a podcast.
It could be a podcast.
Who knows?
But it's going to blossom into something beautiful. And there's actually a lot of lines that come out of that, which will also lead to different paths. So whatever that new thing is, it's going to open up a lot of doors for you.
Fantastic.
And then lastly, what I'll say, other than you really needing to get over something.
I need to clean that thing up. I got to get that clump out of there.
There's 3 core pillars in your life, 3 foundational family members seen through this. So this looks kind of like the trunk of a tree at the very bottom. And there's 3 people in your life, whether it's a relationship that is as close to family or it is an actual family member, blood family member. But there's 3 people that really will always be with you throughout your entire life. And they make you feel very open, and you kind of wear your heart on your sleeve for them. You're very honest, and that's shown through the white space here. So keep them close and let them know that you love them.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. Hocus pocus or not, that actually speaks to me deeply, and I really, really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. And if you, I was going to say, if you want to open up about anything, I'm here to listen.
We'll turn off the microphones before we make it about me. Melis, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
This episode of The Distiller was recorded live at Ruya Coffee, located in the Globefront space at People's Liberty, 1805 Elm Street in Over the Rhine, Cincinnati, Ohio. Many thanks again to Melis Aydogan and the staff both of Ruya Coffee and of People's Liberty for welcoming us in, and of course for the amazing Turkish coffee, the Turkish delights, and other treats. Ruya is only open until November 18th, at least in this current incarnation. So if you're in Cincinnati, make sure you get down there and experience what Melis and her team have created before it transitions into whatever is next. Ruya is open Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, as well as at other times for special events. You can visit ruyacoffee.com. Ruya is R-U-Y-A. So ruyacoffee.com for specific times, as well as the schedule of events and all the other information. You can also visit Ruya on Facebook and Instagram for more information. We link to all of those accounts from our website at thedistillerpodcast.com, as well as to People's Liberty for more information on all the programs and initiatives People's Liberty funds. People's Liberty just closed the submission period for their last round of project grants the day before this episode comes out, and the winners will be announced in early November. So be sure to follow People's Liberty on social media to hear when the announcements are made and to learn about all the great projects and individuals they've funded, and to follow all the great work to come. The Distiller is produced, recorded, and hosted by me, Brandon Dawson, with co-production and booking from Terry Heist. Our show is mixed and edited by Justin Golden. Our logo was designed by Scott Ryan, and our videos are by Mike Helm of Minute Moments Pictures. You can find The Distiller wherever you listen to podcasts. Please, wherever you listen, click that subscribe button to be notified when new episodes are released. And if you like what we're doing, please do spread the word. You can do that by following and sharing our posts on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And maybe the best way to help is to rate and review The Distiller wherever you listen, on iTunes, on Google Play, on Spotify, on Stitcher. Those ratings and reviews help us rise in search results and help other people find out about the podcast. So please do that. Thank you. Remember, you can also listen and download every episode of The Distiller and find information including links, photos of the guests, a map of all the show locations, and get in touch with us all at thedistillerpodcast.com. You can check out this post on our website for the horrible iPhone video I shot of Melis reading my fortune in the coffee grounds, and you can actually see what she was looking at in the cup while she's speaking. It's really fun, so check it out. And don't forget, you can also email us at mail@thedistillerpodcast.com. Tell us who you think should be on The Distiller to talk about their search for meaningful work, or where you think we should record the show. Please drop us a line, whether by email, on the website, or on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. We always love to hear from you. So until next time, and as always, thanks for listening to The Distiller. Bye-bye.